Crimson Sunset. Chapter 1. My name is Ryan Frost, 32 years old, former Army Ranger, now a guide and survival instructor in the remote forests of Oregon. My wife Emily, a literature teacher with a poet's soul, helped me return to life after a sniper's bullet turned my knee into a mess of bone fragments and metal. A year ago, my father, the sheriff of our sleepy town of Pine Haven, was found dead under circumstances that people still whisper about, and my younger brother Jason disappeared, as if dissolving into the pre-dawn mist. The official version states that Jason killed our father due to connections with a drug cartel, although my mother never believed this nonsense. Now she's no longer among the living. And you know what? She was right. The truth, like a rusty blade, always cuts through the superficial flesh of lies, slowly, inevitably, causing unbearable pain. Hold the blade at a 45-degree angle, Milo. That way you'll only split your palm to the bone in 10 seconds. I watch as a 19-year-old law student with soft facial features and a pianist's hands tortures a piece of pine branch with a folding knife. As if confirming my words, the blade slips, and the young man jerks his thumb back with the caution of someone who has spotted a viper in their bed. "Damn!" escapes from his lips along with a barely noticeable cloud of vapor. Not damn, but elementary physics. I take the knife and the long-suffering branch from him. "Look, you direct the force away from yourself, control the pressure with your thumb, like at the shooting range, breath, control, smooth movement." I demonstrate how the primitive piece of wood transforms into the foundation for a simple trap under the right movements. The group of 6 townspeople watches attentively, standing in a semicircle. 5 men and 1 woman, creatures spoiled by civilization who decided to learn in 4 days how to survive where asphalt gives way to pristine nature. Most of them couldn't tell the tracks of a moose from those of a red deer, even if their tomorrow's awakening depended on it. "Ryan, does this thing actually work?" A fragile girl named Cassandra, with a sprinkling of freckles on her pale face, nods at the almost completed trap in my hands. "With proper setup and a bit of luck, yes, a rabbit might become your dinner." I finish working on the trigger mechanism. Although for non-professionals, it's always more reliable to have canned food and freeze-dried meals in your backpack. A laugh ripples through the group, diluting the tension of 3 hours of training. We are in the heart of an ancient forest, 20 miles from the nearest signs of civilization. The day turned out cool but sunny, ideal conditions for city kids to learn how little they matter in the face of silent nature. "Split into pairs and practice. I'll check your traps in an hour." I walk over to a gigantic cedar tree felled by a storm and, making sure no one is watching, awkwardly massage my left knee. A fragment left after a hollow-point bullet in Kandahar has chosen today for a personal protest. I swallow 2 painkillers, washing them down with water from a worn army canteen, scarred like its owner. "Captain Frost." I look up and meet the eyes of Carter, the youngest in the group, barely over 20. Since morning, he hasn't been able to hide his admiration after learning about my military past. The boy's eyes burn with the same fire that I once had, long before I learned the true cost of war. "Just Ryan, Carter. I've been a civilian for 3 years now." "Yes, sorry." He shifts from foot to foot like a child outside the principal's office. "I wanted to say thank you. My uncle served in Afghanistan and, well, you know, not everyone comes back whole." I nod, not meeting his eyes. I hate such conversations. Gratitude for service sounds fake, especially from those who have never lain in a trench counting their last breaths under the rumble of artillery. They don't understand that you're not a hero, just a person lucky enough to return from the other side where your brothers in arms remain forever. "Go practice with the trap," I say, putting away the canteen. "In an hour, we'll learn how to blend in with the forest." Carter nods and returns to the group. I observe their awkward movements, automatically assessing their progress, but my thoughts are already wandering miles away. Mother in the hospital. The third attack in a month. The doctors speak in numbers and terms, but their eyes utter the words their lips dare not voice. A sudden scream tears through the silence, making me jump up, ignoring my knee's protest. Cassandra, who was standing at the edge of a small cliff, slipped on the damp carpet of decaying leaves. She flails her arms like a wounded bird, losing balance and begins to fall backward into the abyss. My body reacts before my mind can formulate a thought. 3 lightning-fast steps, a leap, and I grab her by the jacket, yanking her toward me. We both fall to the ground several feet from the 6-foot drop strewn with sharp rocks. "Are you all right?" I ask, helping her up. Cassandra nods, white as the snow cover of the Cascade Mountains. A deep fresh scratch gapes on her boot, but there are no serious injuries. "Thank you, Ryan. I didn't notice the edge." "There are no safe zones in the forest," I say, now addressing the entire group. "Nature doesn't forgive inattention. Here you're not tourists, you're guests who can be shown the door at any moment." When the group returns to their exercises, I feel white fire of pain piercing my knee. The fall disturbed the fragment. I sit down again, massaging my leg, cursing my own clumsiness when my phone vibrates in my pocket. A message from Emily: "Call urgently, Mom." I glance at the sky, assessing the position of the sun. There are still 4 hours left until the end of the class. "Matt," I call to my assistant, a tall bearded guy with a scar from bear claws on his right cheek. "You'll finish today without me. First camouflage, then set up their camp." Something happened. Matt frowns, and his beard looks even more like a crow's nest. "Family matters." I throw the backpack strap over my shoulder. "Make sure they don't burn down half the state, okay?" Matt grins and nods. I quickly say goodbye to the group, citing urgent circumstances, and head for the trail leading to where my battered pickup is parked. When the distance between me and the group becomes sufficient, I stop by a chattering brook cutting through the undergrowth like a silver thread. The water runs between mossy stones, crystal clear and scalding cold. I kneel down, scoop up a handful of water and splash it on my face. The cold brings clarity to my thoughts. Closing my eyes, I take a deep breath. The smell of pine needles, damp earth and rotting bark, clean air. Silence, interrupted only by the whisper of leaves and the murmur of the brook. "Mom." I rise abruptly and stride further, trying not to think about what lies ahead, though intuition already whispers the darkest scenario to me. Our house stands on the outskirts of town, an old log structure with a wide porch and a panoramic view of majestic mountains, perpetually shrouded in haze. My father bought it for a pittance 20 years ago when real estate prices collapsed after the sawmill closed, and gradually turned it into a fortress for his family. After his death, the house passed to me, the only material trace of my father's legacy. Approaching the house, I notice that the garage is wide open, and Emily's Subaru is parked in the driveway like an abandoned toy. She should be at school until 4. Not a good sign. "Emily," I call, entering the house. She emerges from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a checkered towel. Her chestnut hair is gathered in a messy bun. Shadows have settled under her eyes. Her face is pale like the page of an unwritten book. Emily looks as if she's been waging a war against insomnia for several days and lost. "Ryan," she hugs me tightly, burying her face in my jacket that smells of forest and freedom. "Good that you came quickly." "What's with Mom?" I pull back, trying to read the answer in her eyes. "Another attack, the doctors say." Emily presses her lips together as if trying to hold the words inside. "They say she might not survive this night." I nod, trying to cope with the wave of emotions rising from within like dark water. Emily walks into the living room, and I notice strange details. How she adjusts a magazine on the table, covering something. How she inconspicuously slides a bottle of whiskey behind books on the shelf. How a glass with amber liquid disappears under a sofa cushion. Strange. Emily never drank during the day. She rarely drank at all, A couple of glasses of wine over dinner, no more. Are you hungry? She asks, averting her gaze. I can heat up some lasagna. No time. Let's go to the hospital right now. I drop my backpack by the door. Give me 5 minutes to wash off the forest. In the bathroom, I quickly rid myself of sweat and dirt. A tired man with premature gray at the temples and wrinkles as deep as mountain gorges stares back at me from the mirror. One might think I'm 45, not 32. I come out of the shower to find Emily in the kitchen. She's bustling around, filling a thermos with coffee. Her hands tremble like aspen leaves in the wind. Are you okay? I ask, embracing her shoulders. Yes, just worried about your mom and about you. She turns and tries to smile, but the smile comes out broken. You look exhausted. 3 from the group almost fell into a ravine. These city folks think nature is a big theme park. I try to ease the tension. They just don't know what real danger is, Emily says quietly, and in her words I hear a second meaning, deep as a mountain lake. On the nightstand in our bedroom, I notice an orange bottle of prescription medicine. Sleeping pills, prescribed to Emily just a week ago. Strange, she never complained about sleep problems. Even in the hardest times, when my war nightmares became unbearable, Emily slept lightly but soundly. Before I can ask, the phone rings. Emily darts out of the kitchen and grabs the receiver, turning away and lowering her voice to a whisper. Yes, no, not now. I'll call back later. Hanging up, she explains too hastily. Julia from school, about a substitute for tomorrow. I nod, pretending I believed her, though my intuition sounds the alarm. Something isn't right here. Usually Emily is an open book, but now she's like one written in an unknown language, in a cipher I cannot decipher. She seems afraid of something, or someone. When we head for the exit, I catch from the corner of my eye how Emily secretly drinks a glass of whiskey, standing by the kitchen sink. In one gulp, like medicine. Then she quickly rinses the glass, thinking she remained unnoticed. In the car, we are silent, each immersed in a whirlpool of thoughts. I think about Mom, about her last months filled with pain and loneliness. After Dad's death and Jason's disappearance, something in her broke, as if a hurricane had torn the roof off the house of her soul, leaving everything most precious defenseless against rain and wind. Emily places her hand on my knee, a gesture of support we've used for years. But now her fingers tremble like a spider web under the weight of dew, and I feel the cold emanating from them, like from a shard of ice. In the hospital's reception area, there's a deathly silence. 2 nurses at the counter are engaged in a hushed conversation. An elderly couple sits in the waiting area, holding hands as if tomorrow might never come. The air is saturated with the smell of antiseptic, cold coffee, and stale food, the universal aroma of human suffering, the same in all hospitals across the world. Passing by the nurses' station, I notice Sheriff Blackwood animatedly talking with the chief physician. Noticing me, Blackwood puts on a smile too wide, too rehearsed to be genuine. "Ryan," he calls out, stepping away from the chief doctor. "I just visited your mother, got a message from Dr. Martens." Blackwood shakes my hand. His fingers squeeze a bit harder than necessary, a small demonstration of power that he can't restrain even in such a moment. "Thank you for your concern, Sheriff," I reply neutrally. "Damned shame, Ryan, first Thomas, now Sarah." He shakes his head with an expression of grief that seems pasted on his face. "Send my regards. If you need anything, call any time." Over Blackwood's shoulder, I notice Emily tensing at his words. A strange reaction for a woman who has known the sheriff all her life. "The room number hasn't changed," I ask the nurse. 208, she confirms. "Dr. Martens is there now." On the way to the elevator, Emily suddenly stops. "Ryan, I'd better wait downstairs. Your mom needs to be alone with you." "Are you sure? She always loved you." "That's exactly why." Emily squeezes my hand with fingers as cold as autumn rain. If this really is the end, she needs her son, not a daughter-in-law. I nod and go up to the second floor alone. Mom's room is at the end of the corridor, illuminated by fluorescent lamps that give that special, lifeless light that makes even healthy people look sick. Dr. Martens is just coming out of there, his coat seeming faded under this light. "Ryan," he quietly greets me, "your mother is very weak. Heart failure is progressing faster than we expected. Her kidneys are failing." He places a hand on my shoulder. "She responded to external stimuli for the first time today. Perhaps she was waiting for you." "Thank you, doctor." My voice sounds foreign, as if it belongs to someone else. "We've done everything in our power, Ryan." The doctor looks directly and honestly. "Now just be with her." I open the door to the room. The smell of medications is stronger here. The air seems thick as water. Mom lies on the hospital bed, connected to several machines whose green lines draw a fragile picture of fading life. Emaciated, almost transparent, a ghost of the woman who baked blueberry pies on Sundays and wiped away my childhood tears. "Hi, Mom," I say quietly, sitting on the chair next to the bed and taking her cold hand, light as a bird's feather. Her eyelids flutter like butterfly wings. Her eyes open, cloudy, as if covered with a film, but there's a flash of recognition in them. Ryan." Her voice is barely audible, like the rustle of autumn leaves. "I'm here, Mom." I lean closer, squeezing her hand. "Listen." She struggles to raise her free hand and touches my face, tracing the contours as if blind, memorizing the features. "Your brother, Jason. He didn't kill your father." A cold runs down my spine like a draft from the other world. A year ago, when they found my father's body, all evidence pointed to Jason. Fingerprints on the gun, an argument overheard by neighbors the night before, the sudden disappearance. "What are you saying, Mom?" I lean even closer, as if I could absorb her words through my skin. "Talk to Helen." Her fingers tremble on my cheek. "She knows the truth." "To Helen, Dad's secretary." I try to speak calmly, though my heart is racing like a hunted horse. "I always knew." Her breathing becomes irregular like a broken clock. "He is innocent." Suddenly she tenses, eyes wide open, mouth contorted in a silent scream. The monitors next to the bed begin to emit piercing alarm signals, the electronic cry of a dying body. "Mom," I jump up. "Nurse, doctor, quickly." A nurse and Dr. Martens rush into the room. They push me away from the bed, as if I'm now extraneous in this space between life and death, checking indicators and administering some medications. Pressure dropping, the nurse's voice sounds alarmed. "Cardiac stimulation, quickly," Martens commands. I step back to the wall, watching as they try to resuscitate my mother. Time stretches, seconds turn into hours. Through the doorway, I see the figure of Blackwood, standing in the corridor like a dark guardian. He observes what's happening with an expression I cannot decipher. Our eyes meet. There's something wrong in his gaze, something alien. Not grief, not sympathy. Something cold, calculating, like the gaze of a reptile assessing its prey. "Time of death." Dr. Martin's voice brings me back to reality. 1542. I look at the lifeless body of my mother, while before my eyes stand her last words, imprinted in my consciousness with red-hot iron. "Your brother didn't kill your father. Talk to Helen." 12 words that turned my world upside down, like an earthquake. Rain has been drizzling since morning, turning the cemetery ground into black, sticky muck that clings to the mourner's boots. The pastor finishes his speech, rehearsed phrases about eternal peace and meeting the Creator, which my mother would probably have found pathetic in their empty template nature. I stand straight as a post, feeling only the piercing cold penetrating through my coat. Emily holds my hand tightly, as if afraid I might otherwise fall to pieces. About 30 people have gathered around, Mom's friends, neighbors, several of Dad's former colleagues. In their gazes I see that special pity which alienates even more than indifference. Ryan Frost, the the guy who lost his father and brother, and now his mother too. A former ranger with a crippled knee and a family torn to shreds. The perfect character for whispers over coffee at the local diner. Beyond the row of mourners, I notice a middle-aged woman standing at a distance under a black umbrella that resembles a raven's wing. Helen Morgan, my father's former secretary. She doesn't approach the grave, keeping herself apart, as if an invisible wall separates her from the others, but her gaze is fixed on me like a magnetic needle to the pole. Talk to Helen. The pastor finishes, and people begin to disperse, casting farewell glances and sympathetic nods. I wait for everyone to move away so I can approach Helen, but at that moment Blackwood appears beside me, as if materializing from the damp air. Ryan, he places his hand on my shoulder, his grip firmer than friendly. My condolences. Sarah was an amazing woman. Thank you, Sheriff, I reply dryly. I saw you at the hospital before. He pauses, as if choosing his words. Did she manage to say anything, last words, wishes? His tone seems casual, but his eyes study my reaction with the frightening intensity of a hawk spotting a field mouse. No, I meet his gaze without blinking. She was too weak. Blackwood nods, but something in his expression says he didn't believe me. Listen, son. He lowers his voice to an intimate whisper. I understand how difficult this is for you right now, but my advice, don't dig into the past for your own good. Some things are better left buried, deeply buried. His words send shivers down my spine, like long, cold fingers tracing the line of my backbone. This wasn't just condolence, it sounded like a warning, like a threat. I need to go, I say, stepping back. Thank you for coming. When I turn to find Helen, I see her talking to Blackwood. She looks frightened, like a mouse before a snake. The sheriff is saying something insistently to her, leaning almost to her ear. Finished, he straightens up and with a smile supports her by the elbow as if they were old friends. Helen nods, casts a quick glance at me full of, what, fear, regret, and hastily leaves the cemetery, leaving wet footprints on the soggy ground. Do you know Helen? I ask Emily as we walk to the car. Not really, Emily shrugs with feigned casualness. She worked with your father for about 10 years, I think. After his death, she retired. Mom mentioned her before she died, I say, closely observing my wife's reaction. Emily stumbles on level ground, as if someone invisible tripped her. Really? What did she say? Nothing specific. I lie, not understanding why, just her name. The rest of the day passes in a fog. People come to our house, bring food, endlessly repeat the same condolences. I nod, thank them, and impatiently wait for everyone to leave. I need to be alone with my thoughts, allow them to circle in free fall. That night I wake up to some sound. The clock on the bedside table shows 2:17. The place next to me is empty, like a dried riverbed. Emily is not in bed. I quietly get up and walk down the corridor like a ghost in my own house. From the kitchen comes a whisper, thin as a cobweb. He doesn't know anything, Emily's voice barely audible. No, I can't right now. It's too dangerous. I'll call back later. I deliberately step on a creaky floorboard. The whisper abruptly cuts off like a severed string. When I enter the kitchen, Emily is standing by the window with a phone in her hand. Her face is pale and tense, like a plaster mask. Everything okay? I ask, pretending I didn't hear anything. Yes, she smiles tensely, as if pulling together a wound. Couldn't sleep. Called Karen, she's having trouble with her husband, you know what a jerk he is. Karen is her friend from work, married to a local mechanic, a fan of bad whiskey and strong fists. At 2 in the morning, I go to the refrigerator and take out a bottle of water. She's not sleeping either. The kids are sick. Jack is missing again somewhere. Emily averts her eyes as if afraid I'll read the truth in them. Shall we go back to bed? In the bedroom, I lie awake for a long time, listening to Emily's uneven breathing. She's not sleeping either. Between us, pressed against each other, it's as if a concrete wall has grown. Something is happening, something serious. My wife is hiding something, and this something is clearly bigger than a simple secret. In the morning, when Emily is taking a shower, I check her phone. The call history is empty, everything deleted, as if someone tried to erase traces of a crime. In the messages, nothing suspicious. Correspondence with colleagues, friends, me. However, in the deleted messages, I find several strange texts from an unknown number. Meet at the usual place, 7 p.m. Don't tell anyone, especially him. You know what will happen if you refuse. I photographed the messages on my phone and put her smartphone back, feeling like a thief in my own home. At breakfast, I look at old photographs of my father and Jason. In one, they're standing near a fishing cabin at Silent Pond Lake, proudly displaying their catch. Dad looks pleased with himself, as if he caught not a rainbow trout but the Loch Ness monster. Jason, an awkward teenager with long bangs and angular shoulders, with that special uncertainty experienced by boys standing between childhood and adulthood. "Why are you doing this?" asks Emily, placing a cup of coffee in front of me, black as the past night. "Just remembering," I reply. "Strange that we never talk about them, especially about Jason." Emily flinches at the sound of my brother's name, as if I uttered a spell. "Ryan," her voice sounds tense like a taut string. "Better not to remember him, you know how people react." And how should they react? I look into her eyes, trying to read the truth in them. No one knows for sure what happened. "Please," Emily almost begs, her voice trembling like a dry leaf in the wind. "After everything that's happened, just leave it alone." Her reaction seems strange, unnatural. Before, Emily never avoided talking about Jason. She always doubted his guilt, even when I was sure of the opposite, blinded by grief and shock. In the evening, I go into the study and find my father's old address book, smelling of tobacco and leather. Looking through the contacts, I come across an entry, Helen Morgan, and a phone number. I mentally note it and put the book back on the shelf, feeling like a thief stealing other people's secrets. That night, Emily gets up again, thinking I'm asleep. This time she locks herself in the bathroom. I hear her muffled whisper but can't make out the words. When she returns, she smells of whiskey and cigarettes, though she quit smoking 3 years ago, swearing on our favorite book of Robert Frost's poems. In the morning, I notice a bruise on her wrist that wasn't there before. Fresh, dark purple, as if someone had grabbed and squeezed her arm with inhuman strength. "What's that?" I ask, touching her arm at breakfast. Emily flinches and pulls her hand away, as if I touched an open wound. "Hit it on a door at school. They fixed the lock and now it sticks out." She quickly changes the subject, as if closing a door in my face. "Do you have training today?" "Canceled for the week," I reply, pretending to believe her explanation, although the bruise clearly follows the outlines of male fingers. "Need to sort out the paperwork after Mom's death." Who would have known how true those words would turn out to be? 3 days after the funeral, I find an envelope in the mailbox with no return address. Inside is a short note written in neat feminine handwriting. "Pine Cone Cafe, 3 o'clock, back table. Come alone. I know the truth about your father. H." I don't tell Emily anything. I say I'm going to meet a lawyer about the inheritance and head to the Pine Cone, an old establishment on the outskirts of town, built back in the 50s. Once it was a popular meeting place for lumberjacks and hunters. Now it barely stays afloat, serving mainly truckers and a handful of elderly locals clinging to their habits like straws in a stormy sea. At 3 in the afternoon, the cafe is almost empty. I walk to the back table, where Helen Morgan is already sitting, nervously twirling a coffee cup in her hands. Noticing me, she straightens up, her eyes warily tracking my movements as if watching a predator. "Ryan," she nods, "thank you for coming." "You sent the note." I sit across from her. "What did you want to talk about?" Helen quickly looks around, then leans closer. I'm being watched. We don't have much time. Her voice is quiet but firm as steel. Your father knew he might be killed and left something with me for safekeeping. She takes a thick envelope from her bag and passes it to me under the table. What is this? I ask, not opening it. Evidence? Helen nervously licks her lips. Your father wasn't a saint, but he was an honest man. He was gathering information against Blackwood. Your brother was helping him. I grip the envelope tightly, feeling the paper dig into my fingers. Blackwood, what does the sheriff have to do with this? He's not who he pretends to be, Ryan. Helen shakes her head as if trying to shake off a nightmare. Your father discovered that Blackwood is running the local drug network. He was going to expose him. Why didn't you go to the police, to the FBI? I can't believe what I'm hearing. It sounds like the script of a cheap thriller. You don't understand. Blackwood controls all the police in the county, and without solid evidence, the feds wouldn't even listen. Helen smiles bitterly. And who would they believe? A respected sheriff or a frightened secretary with loud accusations? Why did my father entrust this to you? I still doubt, like a person afraid to see the truth hidden behind the veil. Helen momentarily lowers her eyes, as if immersing herself in the past. I loved him for 20 years, Ryan. Your mother knew and accepted it. We had a special relationship. I sit stunned. My father and Helen, Mom knew. Now my duty is to pass the truth to you, she continues. Read everything in the envelope. There's a letter specifically for you. But be careful, Blackwood will kill anyone who stands in his way. Through the window, I notice a police car slowly approaching the cafe, like a predator stalking its prey. Damn, Helen turns pale as a sheet. They're here, I have to go, back exit. She stands up, but then leans toward me again. Your brother is innocent, Ryan. He never killed your father. Blackwood did it when he realized the sheriff had gathered enough evidence. And then he framed Jason, like in a bad play. How do you know? I grab her arm. Did you see it? No, but your father told me Jason was helping him with the investigation. Helen frees her hand. Everything is explained in the envelope. Now this is your burden, Ryan. This is why you returned to town. With these words, she hastily heads for the back door, disappearing like a ghost in the morning mist. I remain sitting, clutching the envelope tightly and trying to process what I've heard. My brother is innocent. Blackwood is a drug dealer and a murderer. My father knew. My mother knew. Emily. Suddenly all the oddities in my wife's behavior form a grim mosaic. Secret calls, meetings, bruises, sudden alcoholism. Was Blackwood blackmailing her, threatening her, forcing her? I hide the envelope in the inner pocket of my jacket and leave the cafe, trying to look casual. The policeman in the car looks directly at me. I nod to him and head toward my pickup. My heart pounds like a bird in a cage. My head buzzes with new information tearing apart my perceptions of reality. I get behind the wheel but don't start the engine. I need a minute just to breathe. A year ago, I was certain that my brother was a traitor who killed our father. I despised him, cursed him, wished him death in the darkest corners of my consciousness. I believed Blackwood, believed the evidence, believed the official version, like a trusting child. And now I have to find out how deep the rabbit hole is that I've begun to descend into, and whether I'll have enough air to reach the bottom and get back out. Chapter 2. I drive home, gripping the steering wheel tightly and feeling the weight of the envelope in the inner pocket of my jacket. My gaze involuntarily darts to the rearview mirror. Is anyone following me? Is there a black SUV or a police car on my tail? An old army habit, sharpened after Helen's words. Do I trust her? I don't know. But I definitely don't trust Blackwood, especially after that strange look in the hospital and the warning at the funeral. At home, I immediately go to my study and lock the door. Emily is at school and won't return for a couple of hours, enough time to examine the contents of the envelope. After emptying its contents onto the desk, I freeze at the sight. Before me lies my father's old notebook, worn to a shine, a well-used USB flash drive, a stack of photos with grainy texture, and a sealed envelope with the inscription to Ryan. My father's handwriting, firm and confident, carrying an unwavering belief in justice. He always wrote as if each word was a verdict. I decide to start with the notebook. At first glance, ordinary sheriff's notes, patrol dates, contacts, reminders. But on every third page there are strange symbols, rows of letters and numbers devoid of obvious meaning. I smile despite the circumstances. When I was 10, my father taught me a simple cipher. We called it the sheriff's code. Each letter was replaced by another according to a certain principle. A children's game, but effective for hiding notes from curious eyes. It takes me 20 minutes to remember the rule and begin decryption. What I read makes my blood freeze, like ice water. Trucks with red maple leaves on the sides, cartel transport. Route: County Road 16, past the old hydroelectric plant, then to Higgins' warehouse. Blackwood personally meets each delivery. Contents: prohibited substances, possibly weapons. Dr. Gray falsifies autopsy reports. 3 cases: James Anderson overdose, officially heart attack; Anna Collins beatings, officially a fall down the stairs; Daniel Donahue gunshot, officially car accident. Jason agreed to help, worried for his safety, but he insists, says he can secretly photograph Blackwood's meetings. Good job, son, but be careful. I turn the page. The last entry is dated the day of my father's death, an abrupt phrase like an interrupted breath. Gathered enough evidence. Meeting Blackwood today at the old hydroelectric plant, 2300. Jason will be on backup with a camera. If something happens to me, documents with Helen. Ryan, sorry for involving your brother. My hands tremble as if from chills. I put the notebook aside and pick up the photographs. In several, Blackwood passing some packages to people with characteristic Latin American appearances. Cars with Mexican license plates. Night meetings at abandoned buildings. In one shot, Blackwood is counting stacks of money in the trunk of his SUV, like a poker player checking his winnings. The next photograph was taken inside some room. Dr. Gray, Emily's father, is bent over a body. Next to him, Blackwood. They're talking in hushed voices, unaware of the hidden camera recording their crime. I insert the flash drive into the computer. Folders with financial reports, bank statements for shell companies, lists of names, a separate file, associated persons. I open it and scan through a list of 20 surnames, many of which are familiar: the city judge, 2 deputies, several police officers, and the name of Dr. Robert Gray, my wife's father, with a note: medical certificates, fake death reports. Finally, I open the personal letter, as if opening my veins. Ryan asterisk. If you are reading this, I am probably no longer alive. I'm sorry I didn't involve you in the investigation. I wanted to protect you, my eldest son, whom I have always been proud of. Blackwood has turned our county into a transit base for a drug cartel. It all started small, turning a blind eye to minor deliveries. Now it's an empire that he controls by bribing and intimidating people. Jason was helping me gather evidence. Whatever happened, he is not involved in my death. I am proud of him. Proud of you too, though I rarely said it. Men of our kind aren't very good at expressing feelings. Be careful, Blackwood has influence everywhere. Even if you go to the FBI, he'll know before you reach their office. Your father, Thomas Frost. I sit, stunned, as if hit in the back of the head with a rifle butt. Guilt for believing in my brother's guilt corrodes me from within like acid of shame. But even more shocking was Dr. Gray's name on the list. What did Emily know about this? What did she know about her father? What connected her to Blackwood? With effort, I gather all the documents and hide them in a secret safe behind a painting depicting a mountain landscape. There is much to find out, and I feel that little time is allotted for this. Over the next 2 days, I carefully study my father's records, mapping the locations associated with Blackwood's activities. The main activity revolves around 4 points: Higgins' abandoned warehouse, the Blue Pine Motel, the backyard of the Last Frontier bar, and the old hydroelectric plant, the place where my father was killed. I decide to start with surveillance of the warehouse. Telling Emily that I'm conducting additional training for a new group of clients, I leave home at noon. The warehouse is located in an industrial zone that has long since fallen into decay. The perfect place for illegal activities. Deserted, many abandoned buildings, an intricate network of streets resembling a spider web. I position myself on a hill half a mile from the warehouse, using an army binoculars with tenfold magnification. Until darkness falls, there is no activity. The gray rectangular building with a rusted metal roof looks abandoned, but I notice hidden surveillance cameras and fresh tire tracks on the driveway, signs that this rotting tooth of a structure is still alive and capable of causing pain. Around 9 in the evening, the situation changes. 2 trucks approach the warehouse, white vans with the logo of a food delivery company. On their sides, red maple leaves, exactly as my father described in his notes. I begin photographing what's happening, using a telephoto lens. 2 men of Latin American appearance, armed with pistols in shoulder holsters, get out of the first truck's cabin. They look around like wolves sensing a stranger and give a sign to the driver of the second van. A few minutes later, a black SUV drives up, predatory and gleaming like a burying beetle. Blackwood. Even at a distance, I recognize his characteristic gait, slightly swaying with raised shoulders. Military personnel always pay attention to such details. They can save your life when you have to determine friend or foe in the twilight. Blackwood greets the men and they enter the warehouse together. The doors close, but through the dirty windows, I can see moving shadows and flashlight beams, like fireflies dancing in the night forest. I change position, moving closer to the road. The cold wind cuts to the bone. Autumn in Oregon doesn't joke around. The hours drag painfully, like climbing a mountain with full gear. At midnight, the doors open again. The men load several boxes into the vans and leave. Blackwood remains, talking on the phone. I'm about to leave when I notice movement at the edge of the forest surrounding the industrial zone. A figure flickers between the trees like a ghost. Intuition screams, "Look closer." I focus the binoculars and freeze. Despite the darkness and the hood concealing the face, I would recognize this silhouette out of 1,000. The characteristic tilt of the head, the slight slouch of the left shoulder, the habit of keeping hands in pockets as if all the world's secrets are stored there. Jason. Is my brother alive and watching Blackwood, as I am now? Or am I imagining things, and the longing for my lost family is painting ghosts where there are none? Forgetting caution, I move toward the forest. The figure notices my movement and disappears among the trees like a forest spirit. I quicken my pace, but when I reach the place where I saw my brother, there's no one there. Only flattened grass and a broken branch indicate that a person of flesh and blood recently stood here. When I return home, it's almost 3 in the morning. Emily is waiting in the living room, nervously fidgeting with her sweater sleeve like a child who received a bad grade. "Where were you?" Her voice trembles like an aspen leaf. "I called Matt. He said no additional training was planned." "I needed to be alone," I lie. "Sorry I didn't warn you. I went to the mountains to just think about Mom, about Dad." Emily studies me. In her eyes I read fear, not for me but her own, dark and deep as a well. "Ryan, what's happening? You've changed since the funeral. You're hiding something." "I could ask you the same question," I say softly. She averts her gaze, as if unable to meet mine. "I don't understand what you mean." "It doesn't matter. Let's sleep, it's late." At night I pretend to be asleep, but actually I'm waiting. Around 4 in the morning, Emily carefully gets up and tiptoes out of the room. I follow her, moving silently like a predator. She locks herself in the bathroom. Through the thin door, I hear her whisper, resembling the rustling of dry leaves. He suspects something. I can't take it anymore. This has to end. A pause. No, I don't know what's in those documents. I swear I haven't seen. Another pause. Please, enough. I have no choice, you know. I return to the bedroom before she finishes the conversation. Blood pounds in my temples. My wife is talking to Blackwood. My wife is passing information about me to the man who killed my father. Every lie between us feels like a new crack in the foundation of our marriage. We used to always be honest with each other. What changed? And how long has our home been rotten from the inside, remaining intact only on the outside? Over the next few days, I watch Emily closely. She often takes pills, sleeping pills and sedatives, which she hides from me in a jewelry box like small dirty secrets. She started drinking a lot, usually in the evening when she thinks I don't see. Regularly calls someone from the bathroom, locking the door. One day when Emily is taking a shower, I check her phone. In the photo gallery, I discover a picture of our living room sent to Blackwood with the question, "Was anything hidden here?" Date, a week after my mother's death. Reviewing her location history through GPS, I see regular trips to the Blue Pine Motel, every Tuesday and Friday, from 7 to 9 p.m. The very place my father marked as one of Blackwood's meeting points. I return the phone to its place and sit in the armchair, feeling everything inside me constrict. My wife meets with my father's killer twice a week. She spies on me for him. But why? What connects them? Money, blackmail. I recall the list of associated persons and her father's name. Did Emily know about Dr. Gray's dark dealings? Did Blackwood use this against her? There's only one way to find out the truth: to follow her to the motel and see everything with my own eyes, even if the revealed picture will forever change our lives. On Friday, Emily announces that she has a parent-teacher meeting at school. I pretend to believe her and say I'll work in the garage on new equipment for training. As soon as she leaves, I get into my friend's old pickup, which I borrowed the day before. My car is too noticeable in a small town where everyone knows each other. I keep at a safe distance, using tracking skills honed in the mountains of Afghanistan, where the slightest mistake meant death. As expected, Emily drives past the school and heads straight to the Blue Pine Motel, a shabby one-story building with peeling paint and a neon sign blinking in the twilight like a broken streetlight. Blackwood's SUV is already at the entrance, black, predatory, with tinted windows. I park behind a neighboring building and, pulling my cap over my eyes, slip onto the motel grounds like a shadow. Emily gets out of the car. Her gait is tense, shoulders slumped like a person condemned to execution. She stops in front of room number 8, clearly gathering her courage before knocking. The door opens. Blackwood grabs her by the elbow and pulls her inside. Even from a distance, it's clear that the gesture was not friendly. Emily winces in pain like a wounded bird. I walk around the building and find the window of room 8. The blinds aren't completely closed, leaving a narrow gap for observation, like an invitation to hell. Blackwood paces around the room like a predator in a cage. Emily sits on the edge of the bed, not raising her eyes, as if afraid to see her own fate. "What was your husband doing at the old hydroelectric plant?" Blackwood demands. "Who was he meeting with?" Emily shakes her head. "I don't know. He doesn't tell me where he goes." "Don't lie to me." Blackwood slams his fist on the table and the cheap lamp jumps. "I know he met with Helen. What was in the envelope?" Emily flinches as if from a blow. "Envelope? I haven't seen any envelope." Blackwood grabs her by the throat, pinning her to the wall like a butterfly with a pin. "That old witch passed something to him. I knew she was hiding something. You need to find out what's in those documents, or I'll tell everyone what a scoundrel your father was, how he falsified autopsies, how he helped hide bodies. I'll personally come to spit on his grave." "I'll try," Emily whispers, struggling to force words from her constricted throat. "But he doesn't tell me anything." Blackwood lets her go, and she slides down the wall, gasping for breath and rubbing her throat, as if trying to erase the imprints of his fingers. "You have a week," he says, pouring himself whiskey. "Now prove that you're still useful." With these words, he yanks her to her feet and pushes her toward the bed. Emily resists, but Blackwood is stronger. I see tears flowing down her face as he tears off her clothes like the peel from a fruit. My hand reaches for the gun I've carried with me since Afghanistan. One shot, and it would all be over. But an inner voice stops me. If I kill the sheriff, I'll forever bury the truth about my father and brother. Besides, according to the documents, Blackwood's network is extensive. His people would quickly find me and destroy me like an annoying fly. With difficulty overcoming the disgust and rage boiling within me like a volcano, I step away from the window. I need a strategic plan, not an emotional explosion that will only complicate everything. I return to the car and wait. An hour later, Emily comes out of the room. Even in the darkness, it's visible that she has been crying. Her movements are mechanical, like those of a broken doll. Starting the car, she sits motionless for a long time before driving away. I return home before Emily, sit in an armchair in the living room and wait like a hunter in ambush. Chaos reigns in my head. The wife I unconditionally trusted like my own heart meets with my father's killer, passes him information about me, shares his bed. But now I understand that she's a victim, not a traitor, and this makes the pain only sharper. When Emily enters the house, her gaze is extinguished, like a candle in the wind. Seeing me, she tries to smile, but it comes out as a grimace similar to that which appears on the face of someone who's been punched in the stomach. "How was the meeting?" I ask. "Fine, we discussed the curriculum for the next semester." I silently place on the table printouts of her correspondence with Blackwood and a photograph of the motel with her car in the parking lot. Emily freezes, looking at the evidence as if at a snake in her bed. "What is this?" she whispers. "The truth," I reply. "I know about you and Blackwood. I know that you spy on me for him, and I saw what he does to you." Emily turns pale, as if all the blood has been drained from her. She opens her mouth to say something, but instead of words, a muffled sob escapes, like the cry of a drowning person. Her legs give way and she falls to her knees, covering her face with her hands. "Forgive me," she sobs. "Forgive. He's blackmailing me, Ryan. I didn't want to. He forced me." I kneel beside her. "Tell me everything, now without lies." Through tears, Emily tells a story that makes my blood run cold. 2 years ago, shortly after her father's death, Blackwood came to her with a folder of documents, evidence that Dr. Gray had been falsifying medical certificates for the drug cartel for years. He changed causes of death in autopsy reports, concealed traces of violence, helped dispose of unwanted people, like a garbage collector of the criminal world. "My father was a respected man," Emily sobs. "His clinic still helps the poor. Blackwood gave me an ultimatum. Either I would be his informant, or he would publish the evidence and destroy my father's memory, and the clinic would be closed." "Why didn't you tell me?" I ask, feeling my heart breaking in my chest. "I wanted to, but he threatened you too. He said if I spoke up, you would have an accident like your brother Jason." Emily trembles like a leaf in the wind. "At first, I just passed on information about what you said about your father and brother. Then he started demanding more. After your mother's death, it got worse. He knew she'd said something to you before she died. He was furious." "How long has this been going on?" "Almost 2 years," she quietly answers. "I couldn't bear the shame, so I started drinking, taking pills to forget." Emily looks into my eyes with the desperation of a drowning person. "I wanted to kill myself, Ryan, several times, but I was afraid that then there would be no one to protect you." I embrace her and we sit in silence for a long time. Her confession explained a lot: the sudden alcoholism, the pills, the constant fear that followed her like a shadow. "Now we'll deal with this together," I finally say. "I know that Blackwood killed my father. I know about the drug trafficking. I have evidence." "Oh God," Emily whispers like a fragile bird, "if he finds out." "He won't find out, not yet. We need to act carefully." Suddenly the phone rings, the sheriff's number. "Take it," I tell Emily. "Act normal." She answers, putting it on speakerphone. "Yes." "Emily, it's Blackwood." The sheriff's voice sounds sickeningly polite, like poisoned honey. "Is your husband home?" "Yes, he's here." "Pass him the phone, please." I take the phone. "Yes, Sheriff." "Ryan, glad I caught you. Could you come to the station? There are a few routine questions about your movements in recent days." Now, I try to speak calmly, though everything inside me constricts. It's late. "I'm afraid it can't wait. Nothing serious, just a formality." His tone becomes harder, like tempered steel. "Expecting you in half an hour." He hangs up. Emily and I exchange glances. "He knows," she whispers, turning pale as a sheet. "Someone saw you at the warehouse or told him about the meeting with Helen." "Don't panic," I squeeze her hand. "If he had evidence, he would have sent patrol officers to arrest me, not invited me for a chat." I quickly gather my father's documents and take them to the nursery, a room we were preparing for a child we once dreamed of. There's a secret niche in the floor under the old carpet, known only to us. "If something happens to me," I say, closing the hiding place, "take these documents and go to my Army friend Marcus Rodriguez in Portland. His contacts are in my diary, under the code word Alpha. He works for the DEA, he'll help you." Emily nods, pale with fear. "Be careful, he's dangerous, Ryan." "I know." I kiss her, inhaling the familiar smell of shampoo mixed with the smell of fear. "I'm not going to take risks. I'll just listen to what he wants to say. It might give us new information." The police station is located in the center of town, a two-story brick building constructed back in the 50s. I know it like the back of my hand. Dad sometimes took me to work with him when I was a child, letting me play with his badge and dream that someday I too would uphold the law. The duty sergeant greets me with a nod and points to the sheriff's office. "He's waiting for you, Mr. Frost." Blackwood's office has changed little since the time my father sat there. The same wooden panels absorbing light, the massive desk gleaming from polishing, the American flag in the corner, like a silent witness to all the dark deeds discussed here. Only photographs on the walls were added: Blackwood with the state governor, with a senator, with the police commissioner. A demonstration of connections and influence, like an exhibition of trophies. "Ryan, come in." Blackwood points to the chair in front of the desk. "My condolences again regarding your mother's death. Sarah was a wonderful woman." "Thank you," I reply dryly. "You wanted to see me." "Yes, there are a few questions." Blackwood leans back in his chair like a satisfied predator. "The owner of Higgins' warehouse reported suspicious activity around his property. Someone was observing the building from a hill, taking photographs like a paparazzi stalking a celebrity." "And you thought of me." I feign surprise, though everything inside me freezes. "Why?" "Just a coincidence. Your pickup was seen nearby that day." Blackwood studies my reaction like a specimen under a microscope. "Were you there, Ryan?" "I was scouting for a new survival training. The territory seems suitable, abandoned, rugged terrain, ideal for simulating extreme conditions." I shrug like a carefree child. "I didn't know it was off limits." "Of course you can be there." Blackwood smiles broadly, displaying perfectly white teeth. "It's just strange that an experienced instructor chose this particular territory out of all the options our picturesque county is rich with." "It's closest to town," I answer calmly, though my heart beats like a jackhammer. "And yet," Blackwood leans forward and his breath smells of mint lozenges behind which lurks the scent of whiskey. Lately, you've been interested in certain places, Ryan. You're showing curiosity about things that don't concern you. This can be dangerous. I don't understand what you mean. About your meeting with Helen Morgan, for example. His smile becomes predatory, like that of a shark that has smelled blood. The old lady talks a lot, huh, especially about your father. We just had coffee and reminisced about old times. I meet his gaze without blinking. What's suspicious about that? Nothing, if that's the truth. Blackwood taps his fingers on the desk, like a drummer beating a rhythm before an execution. Too bad you had to leave the army, Ryan. They say you were an excellent soldier, the best in your unit. My injury left no choice. I reply with a tinge of bitterness that I don't need to fake. Yes, Afghanistan, right? You know, his voice becomes quieter as if before a declaration of love. In war, all sorts of things happen, stray bullets, friendly fire. It would be tragic if something similar happened here in peaceful Pine Haven, especially with your beautiful wife. Every muscle in my body tenses, ready to attack. This was a clear threat, barely veiled by a social conversation, like a dagger in velvet scabbard. I hope nothing happens to Emily, I reply evenly. She's already had a tough time lately. Oh yes, she's a wonderful woman, dedicated. Blackwood leans back in his chair like a satiated boa constrictor. Her father was also a dedicated man, knew his place and the rules of the game. What are you trying to say? I pretend not to understand the hint, though blood boils in my veins. Just advice, Ryan. Blackwood rises, towering over me like a monolith. Know your place. Live your life. Forget what old Helen told you. She lost her mind after your father's death. They were close, did you know? He grins like a devil offering a contract. Otherwise, anything can happen. Do you understand me? Perfectly, I stand too. May I go? Of course, I just wanted to clarify the situation. Dot the I's. Blackwood escorts me to the door. By the way, if you see your brother, send my regards. I miss Jason. We didn't finish our conversation. I freeze at the door as if punched in the gut, but I contain myself, not allowing the shock to show on my face. He knows that Jason is alive. He knows and wants me to know that he knows, twisting the spiral of a dangerous game. Stepping outside, I deeply inhale the cold night air, filled with the smell of pines and approaching rain. Blackwood just openly threatened me and Emily. He won't stop until we're dead, until the truth about him is buried deeper than the bodies of his victims. I must find my brother, before Blackwood does, before he finishes his conversation with Jason. Chapter 3. I return home from Blackwood with the feeling that the hourglass of our lives has been turned over, and the sand is draining too quickly. His threat was unambiguous. He won't stop at anything to keep his secrets, even if he has to drown the entire town in blood. Barely crossing the threshold, I realize something's wrong in the house. Minute details that only the owner would notice. A vase moved from its place on the fireplace mantel, a slightly open closet door that I always close, a book on the shelf standing with its cover outward instead of its spine, like indisputable evidence of an intruder's presence. Emily runs out of the bedroom, pale, with eyes widened in terror, resembling black holes. Someone was here, she whispers, looking around like a cornered animal. While you were with Blackwood, I went to take a shower, and when I came out, I heard footsteps on the first floor. I barely managed to hide in the closet like a frightened child. I quickly inspect the house. Drawers are pulled out, things overturned but with a demonstrative carelessness. A professional search disguised as a burglary, like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Fortunately, the hiding place with the documents remained untouched. My paranoia proved justified. Blackwood called. Emily trembles, wrapping her arms around herself as if trying to hold her own soul inside. Right after you left. Asked when you'd return, said he wanted to drop by to discuss some details. I said I'd be at my sister's, and he laughed and replied, "Yes, of course, Emily." There's such terror in her eyes that I embrace her like a fragile porcelain figurine. Everything will be all right, we'll manage. But we both know it's a lie, empty as an echo in an abandoned house. Staying here is dangerous. All walls have suddenly become transparent, all doors illusory. Blackwood unambiguously made it clear that his patience is running out, like a fuse on a dynamite stick. We have to leave, I say, pulling an old army backpack from the closet smelling of memories of war. Peter, my friend from Washington, will take us in. Let's gather the essentials: documents, warm clothes, some food. Emily nods, mechanically following my instructions like a zombie. I see that she's on the verge of a nervous breakdown, but she's holding up. She always has, even in the hardest times when my war nightmares turned nights into torture. After packing, I look out the window and freeze like a tree frog before a snake. A black SUV without identification mark slowly drives past the house, like a shark circling around its prey. A minute later it returns, moving even slower, almost stopping in front of our porch. They're watching us, I say through clenched teeth. We'll have to split up. I'll lead them away and you leave through the neighbor's yard. There's a gate in the hedge. Get to Karen, your friend, spend the night with her, and in the morning go to Marcus in Portland. No, Emily grabs my arm with the strength of a drowning person. I won't leave you. Listen. I take the flash drive with documents from the hiding place and place it in her palm, closing her fingers around it like around a life preserver. If something happens to me, send this to Marcus Rodriguez from the DEA in Portland. His contacts are on the back of our wedding photo. It's in your wallet, right? Emily slowly nods, as if in a trance. He'll help. We serve together. I trust him as I trust myself. I embrace her, inhaling the familiar scent of her hair, feeling the fragility of her body in my arms, memorizing every line and curve. Perhaps for the last time. I'll call you in 2 hours. If I don't call, leave and don't look back like Lot's wife. Promise. I promise, she whispers. But you'll come back, you must come back. We haven't finished reading Wuthering Heights aloud yet. Her inappropriate reminder of our ritual almost makes me believe that everything will be all right, that fate will give us another chance. But experience has taught me that fate is rarely merciful. We decide that Emily will leave through the back door when it gets dark. Meanwhile, I demonstratively pack things in the garage, a diversionary tactic in case someone is watching the house. The plan seems reliable, like a steel cable, but my instinct suggests there will be problems. And so it happens. Fate always laughs at our plans. Around midnight, as Emily prepares to leave through the back door, from the front door comes a crack, like the sound of a battering ram. Broken with one blow, the door flies aside with a crash, opening the way into our home like gates to the underworld. "Ryan!" Emily screams, and there's so much horror in her voice that the hair stands on end. I react instantly, as I was taught in special forces. The body remembers what the mind might prefer to forget. I overturn a massive cabinet, creating a barricade between us and the attackers. Emily rushes to me, and I pull her behind the improvised shelter, like into a trench during artillery fire. 4 of them, armed, I whisper, having assessed the situation with a speed that has saved my life many times in the mountains of Afghanistan, where a wrong decision meant death. Men in masks enter the house. Mercenaries, not police, 2 professional movements, 2 good coordination like a pack of wolves. Trained fighters accustomed to dirty work. "Check the second floor," one of them orders, clearly the leader. "Joe, go around the house. They might try to leave through the back door." There's no time for deliberation, like sand in an exhausted hourglass. The first attacker, turning the corner, runs into a heavy table lamp that I hurl with the furious accuracy of a baseball player. The blow lands on his head. The man falls, losing consciousness like an actor in a bad play. I snatch his gun, feeling the cold of metal, like greeting an old friend. "Follow me," I command Emily, and we quickly move to the kitchen, where the smells of home mix with the adrenaline of fear. The second fighter appears in the doorway and I fire twice. Not aiming to kill, I don't want to become a murderer even now, but accurately enough to disable him. The bullet hits his shoulder and the man staggers back, dropping his weapon like a hot coal. We advance toward the back door when I hear footsteps behind, quiet but insistent, like the ticking of a bomb's timer. The third fighter has flanked us, holding a pistol with a silencer in front of him, like an extension of his arm. "Ryan, look out!" Emily cries with a desperation I've never heard in her voice before. I turn around, but not quickly enough. Time slows down, as in a nightmare where you can't run. The mercenary takes aim, his eyes cold as ice. Everything happens as if in slow motion. His finger on the trigger, his cold-blooded gaze, Emily throwing herself in the way like the heroine of a Greek tragedy. The sound of the shot is muffled, but to me it thunders like an explosion tearing the fabric of reality. Emily cries out and falls, clutching her chest. The bullet intended for me has found her, like a magnet finds north. Rage floods my consciousness in a hot wave. I shoot without aiming, instinctively, as I did hundreds of times in training. The bullet enters precisely between the eyes. The man who shot my wife collapses, dead as a marionette with cut strings. I rush to Emily. Her breathing is ragged, her eyes are clouding over like windows on a rainy day. "Hold on, darling." I press my hand to her wound, trying to stop the bleeding, feeling the pulsation of life under my fingers. "I'll call an ambulance." "Run," she whispers, each word coming with agonizing effort like a marathon runner's final steps. "Don't let him win." "I won't leave you." "You must." Her fingers weakly squeeze my hand like a wilting flower. "For the truth, run." In the distance, sirens wail like wolves that have scented blood. Some neighbor called the police. If Blackwood arrives first, I'm done. He'll surely arrange everything as needed, as he's done hundreds of times before, turning victims into criminals with a stroke of a pen. In desperation, I grab the phone and dial 911. "Woman with a gunshot wound, Cedar Street, House 47. Urgently need help." Then, overcoming a monstrous feeling of guilt, I apply a tourniquet to my wife's wound, stopping the bleeding, kiss her on the forehead, cold as marble, and slip out through the back door, like a thief. At the last moment, I feel a bullet burning my shoulder. The fourth attacker noticed me, but was a fraction of a second too late. Darkness swallows me like an old acquaintance long awaiting our meeting. Night in the forests of Oregon is beautiful and terrible at the same time, like the face of two-faced Janus, especially when you're being hunted like a wild beast. I run through the undergrowth, not caring about the path, trusting instincts more than eyes. The pain in my wounded shoulder pulses in time with my steps but is tolerable. The bullet merely grazed the skin, leaving a furrow like a plow on a spring field. Physical pain seems insignificant compared to the agonizing thought of Emily, bleeding in our destroyed home. Several miles later, I stop by a mountain stream whose icy water sings its eternal song to the stones. I need to treat the wound and gather my thoughts before shock turns me into a useless rag. Dawn finds me in an improvised shelter under an overhanging rock ledge, resembling the stone eyebrow of an ancient giant. I take out a portable radio from my pocket. I always carry it during survival training, like a talisman. I turn on the local station, and the mechanical voice of the announcer invades the morning silence. Attempted murder. Sheriff Blackwood reported that the main suspect is the victim's husband, Ryan Frost, an Army Special Forces veteran suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. According to the sheriff, the Frost family has recently been experiencing problems related to the wife's alcoholism. According to the preliminary version, an argument occurred between the spouses, resulting in Emily Frost receiving a gunshot wound. She is currently in a coma at the city hospital. The sheriff asks anyone who has information about Ryan Frost's whereabouts to inform the police. I turn off the radio, suppressing the approaching nausea, bitter as bile. Everything happened exactly as I had anticipated, with the precision of clockwork. Blackwood turned the situation upside down, making me not a victim of an attack, but a criminal fleeing from justice. But what hurts the most, Emily is in a coma. Alive, but barely. And I can't help her, cut off from her by a wall of lies and fear. Taking out a map from a waterproof case, I begin to analyze the surroundings, like a commander before a decisive battle. If Jason is really hiding here, where would he set up a refuge? His silhouette, glimpsed among the trees near the warehouse, haunts me like a splinter in my memory. Our places, where we played as children, building huts and imagining ourselves as the last survivors in the apocalypse. My gaze falls on a section of the map north of town, a hunting cabin that no one knew about except our family. Dad jokingly called it Eagle's Nest. It was located on a rocky ledge overlooking the valley, like an observation post of ancient gods. The decision is made as if carved in stone. I'll gather supplies and head to the cabin. If my brother still uses it as a refuge, we'll finally meet. And I'll have a chance to learn the whole truth, however bitter it may be. Meanwhile, Blackwood will surely organize search parties like a beater on a hunt. I need to be extremely cautious, invisible as a ghost. Fortunately, the survival skills I taught others, as if mocking urban comfort, can now save my life. The journey to the cabin takes almost a day, filled with tension and ghosts of memories. I move only during the dark hours, avoiding trails and open spaces, like a wounded animal. During the day, I rest in shelters, constantly listening for sounds of pursuit that could mean the end of the game. Finally, I come to a familiar slope where the air is thin and the wind sings differently. But where the cabin should have stood, there's only an overgrown clearing, like a scar on nature's face. I freeze in bewilderment. Has memory failed, distorted by the weight of grief and fatigue? No, the place is right. I remember this special configuration of rocks, resembling a sleeping dragon, the bent pine tree under which Jason and I once buried treasure. A tin can with coins and a penknife, our first family secret. Cautiously moving forward, I notice a barely distinguishable path, flattened grass, broken branches at the same height, traces of human passage, almost perfectly camouflaged, but noticeable to someone who has spent his life reading nature's signs. Moving along these barely visible marks, like breadcrumbs in a fairy tale, I soon discern the outlines of a cabin, skillfully hidden under a camouflage net and branches. If you don't know what to look for, it can be taken for part of the landscape, for a caprice of nature that has arranged stones and branches in a strange form. I take a step forward and freeze, feeling the cold touch of a rifle barrel to the back of my head, right at the base of the skull, an unmistakable reminder of the fragility of human life. Don't move, a hoarse voice behind me sounds tense like a taut string. Hands behind your head, slowly. I obey, carefully raising my hands, as if in surrender. Jason, it's me, Ryan. Silence thick as honey. I feel the hand holding the rifle tense, as if deliberating to believe or not. Turn around slowly. I turn and see him. My brother, whom I considered dead or a fugitive murderer like a ghost returned from oblivion. He's hard to recognize. A thick beard like a hermit's, sunken eyes burning with feverish fire, a gaunt face covered with a branching network of wrinkles beyond his years. But it's Jason, with the same stubborn chin and characteristic mole above his left eyebrow, resembling a drop of ink. Why are you here? The rifle still pointed at my chest like a direction indicator. To finish what Blackwood started, to put down the family traitor. I came to talk, I reply, not lowering my hands. I know you didn't kill Dad. I know you were framed like a sacrificial lamb. His eyes narrow, like lenses focusing on my face. Now you know. And when all the evidence pointed at me, where were you, brother? When the whole town considered me a murderer and you, the ranger, the pride of the family, Did you also believe that I was capable of this? That I could shoot my own father?" His words hurt more than any bullet, penetrating deeper than any knife. "I was wrong," I say simply, not trying to justify myself. "All the evidence was against you. Even Mom had doubts." "She never doubted." Jason laughs bitterly, and in his laughter echo sobs. "She knew me better than anyone. She brought me food the first few months until Blackwood started following her. Then it became too dangerous, and we communicated through notes, like spies from novels." I lower my head, weighed down by the burden of my wrongness, heavy as a granite slab. "I'm sorry, Jason. I should have believed in you." My brother looks at me for a long time, then slowly lowers the rifle, as if surrendering not to me but to fate. "How did you find me? In this wilderness where even beasts get lost?" "I saw you near Higgins' warehouse. Then I remembered the eagle's nest and our childhood oaths." "You always were smart," he smirks, but without the previous bitterness. "Come in, just no tricks. I've been living here for over a year, and I have traps everywhere, ready to turn an uninvited guest into food for ravens." The cabin inside is not at all as I remembered it. Instead of the old wood stove and rough handmade furniture, solar panels powering a computer and radio, like in a command center, a sleeping bag on raised boards protecting from the cold of the earth, boxes of canned goods neatly stacked in a corner, and a wall completely covered with newspaper clippings, photographs, and maps connected by red threads, like the blood vessels of a huge organism of truth. "My little investigation," Jason notes, seeing my amazed look. "All threads lead to Blackwood like to the center of a web." He sits on a camp chair, not letting go of his rifle as if it's part of his body. "So, what changed? Why did you decide now that I'm not a murderer?" "Mom said before she died that you were innocent. Helen Morgan gave me Dad's documents. Everything fits. Blackwood killed Dad and framed you, like a piece in a chess game." Jason nods, as if receiving confirmation of a long-known truth. "Do you have the documents?" "No, with Emily, I falter, the image of my bloodied wife again rises before my eyes like a bloody ghost. "Blackwood sent men to kill me. They wounded Emily. She's in a coma. I'm wanted for her attempted murder." "Son of a bitch," Jason hissed, as if spitting out venom. "That's his handwriting, kill two birds with one stone. Get rid of you and destroy your reputation, turn the hunter into prey." He needs the documents, and he wants to eliminate everyone who knows the truth, like witnesses to his crimes. I look around. "How long have you been hiding here?" "Since the night Blackwood shot Dad," Jason replies, his eyes becoming dark as an abyss. Jason gets up and approaches the wall with investigation materials, as if to an altar of his revenge. "I was helping Dad gather information on Blackwood's drug business. It started by accident. I noticed strange meetings near the old warehouse, photographed them, and showed Dad. He was furious, like a bull seeing a red flag. Said he had long suspected something like this but had no evidence." My brother points to a map with marked points, like constellations in the sky of crimes. "Blackwood created a whole network like a spider, here and here, meeting places with suppliers from Mexico. These, warehouses where the goods are stored like a poisonous potion. And this," he outlines with his finger several intersecting lines, "routes for transportation. The entire county has become a transit base for the cartel, a laundering facility for dirty money." I study the scheme, amazed at the scale of the operation, as if I'm looking not at a map, but at a model of an evil empire. "How many people are involved?" "Dozens. Police officers, officials, doctors. Blackwood bribed or intimidated everyone who had any power. Your father-in-law, Dr. Gray, for example, forged medical reports for years, like a counterfeiter." "I know," I nod. "That's why Blackwood is blackmailing Emily, threatening to reveal the truth about her father, to stain his name with blood and dirt. Typical of him, using any weakness like an experienced trainer." Jason hands me a flask of water cold as his gaze. Dad gathered enough evidence for a federal investigation. That night, he was supposed to meet Blackwood at the old hydroelectric plant. I was covering him from a distance with a camera like a faithful squire. What happened? I ask, though part of me doesn't want to know the answer, fearing it like fire. Jason's face contorts from the painful memory, as if someone is stirring his soul with a red-hot rod. Blackwood didn't come alone. There were two fighters with him, huge Mexicans with automatic weapons looking like orcs from movies. They spotted me when I tried to get closer. Shooting started like in hell. I ran to warn Dad, but it was too late. He swallows hard, fighting a lump in his throat. Blackwood stabbed him in the heart, cold-bloodedly looking him in the eyes. Then ordered my knife and gloves, which I had left in his car the day before, to be planted, creating a perfect illusion of my guilt. You saw it all with your own eyes. My voice drops to a whisper, as if afraid to disturb ghosts. Yes, and I couldn't do anything like a coward in his first battle. Jason clenches his fists so tightly that his knuckles turn white. I ran while they killed our father, and then hid here like a hunted animal, licking my wounds and gathering evidence. But I can never use it. All the evidence of murder is against me, perfectly constructed like a house of cards. Now you can, I say firmly like a blade. There are two of us, and I have connections in the DEA. And Blackwood has an army of corrupt cops and mercenaries. Jason smirks bitterly, as if I suggested attacking a tank with a slingshot. He approaches his investigation wall and points to a new section, photographs of a small motel on the outskirts of town, and an orphanage with a sign, Good Shepherd's Shelter, like a bitter mockery. You know what's the scariest thing? Not the drugs. A year ago, I found out that Blackwood is involved in something even more disgusting, revolting in its inhumanity. He created a scheme for trafficking children. Through a fake orphanage, he sends orphans to Mexico, supposedly for adoption. But not all end up in families. Many disappear like drops in the ocean. I feel sick, as if poison has entered my blood. This explained why Dad was so determined to stop Blackwood at any cost, even at the cost of his own life. This can't be, I whisper. How is this possible in our time under everyone's noses? Very simple. Blackwood bribed social workers like he'd buy vegetables at a market. Children are taken from troubled families under the pretext of abuse, then transferred to a private shelter that supposedly cooperates with international adoption agencies. Papers are forged, children are taken out, and they disappear as if they never existed. Jason shows a folder with photographs that make your blood run cold. Here's the evidence. I've been watching them for months, like a night watchman. At that moment, a ringing sound comes from outside. A primitive alarm system of tin cans hung around the perimeter, like bells on a Christmas tree. Jason immediately turns off the light, plunging the cabin into darkness. They've found us. Blackwood always suspected I was alive. He's been combing these mountains for years like a man possessed, and now you've led him to me. We slip out of the cabin through the backup exit, a camouflaged hatch in the back wall, leading to thickets of juniper that smell of bitter freedom. Jason quickly gathers the most important documents, and I grab his rifle with an optical sight, a faithful companion of a hunter. Settling on a ledge, we survey the surroundings. In the twilight, it's difficult to discern details, but through the rifle scope, I count 5, 3 in local police uniforms and a pair of bearded men in camouflage, like bounty hunters, with military bearing visible even from a distance. Professionals, I whisper, former military judging by their movements. Look how they hold their weapons, ready to shoot at any moment. Mercenaries, Jason nods. Blackwood hires them for special assignments when he needs work done without questions. I've encountered them before. They methodically comb the forest, moving toward the cabin like predators that have scented prey. We need to act quickly before the trap snaps shut. Got a plan? I ask, feeling adrenaline spreading through my veins, sharpening my senses. Distract and leave. I have traps everywhere, tripwires, pit traps, signaling devices. I know the terrain like the back of my hand, every path, every stone. We begin to act as a single organism. Jason activates several diversionary devices, noisemakers and smoke bombs, placed at a distance from the cabin, like false beacons. Then we move into the dense undergrowth and set another trap, stretching wire at ankle level between two trees, deadly simple and effective. Our plan works with the precision of clockwork. Hearing the bangs, the group splits up. Two head toward the source of the noise like moths to a flame, while the rest continue moving toward the cabin, unaware of the trap. One of the mercenaries, a bearded man with a characteristic scar on his cheek resembling a frozen snake, separates from the group and moves directly toward our trap. He notices the wire at the last moment but loses his balance, like a tightrope walker caught by a gust of wind. I leap out from cover and knock him unconscious with a rifle butt, like with a hammer. "Let's tie him up," I say. "He might know something useful, might be a key to the puzzle." We drag the unconscious mercenary into a crevice and tie him up with backpack straps, like a Christmas turkey. After a few minutes, he comes to, his eyes filling with anger and fear, a mixture that makes a person unpredictable. "Who are you?" I ask, pressing a knife to his throat like a conductor with a baton to an orchestra. "What did Blackwood order you to do?" "Go to hell," he croaks with an accent revealing southern roots. Jason pulls me aside, as if calming a wounded beast. "Let me, I know how to handle such types. I've had a year of practice." He leans toward the prisoner. "Listen, friend. I've been observing Blackwood's operations for a year like a hawk. I know about the drug deliveries on Thursday, about how you disposed of the body of the Mexican who tried to cheat the boss, about the children from the Good Shepherd shelter." Jason's voice is calm, almost friendly like a confessor's. "We don't need you. We need Blackwood. Tell us what you know and disappear. Or stay silent and meet the feds when we hand them the evidence. The choice is yours, like at a crossroads." The mercenary looks at us appraisingly, as if weighing his chances. "I'm a dead man either way," he finally says. "If not by your hand, then by Blackwood's when he learns I was caught." "We can protect you," I say. "I have friends in the DEA, witness testimony in exchange for protection, like in old mafia movies." "The feds," he smirks, revealing a broken tooth. "Don't make me laugh. Blackwood will get to you before you find a phone." "Take a risk," suggests Jason. "What do you have to lose except your chains?" The mercenary is silent, then nods, as if jumping off a cliff. "Fine, just untie my hands, damn you. I'm wounded like a hobbled horse." We loosen the ropes, allowing him to sit up. I notice how pale he's become. A wooden stake went deep into his shoulder when he fell, probably hitting an artery, and blood is seeping through the camouflage, like wine through a tablecloth. "Blackwood is going to remove everyone who knows," he began in a hoarse voice. "Your wife is next as soon as he finds out what she knows. He's paranoid, sees threats everywhere, like in the shadow of a ghost." "What operation is he planning?" I ask, feeling my heart constrict at the thought of Emily. "In 3 days, a shipment arrives, the largest ever, drugs disguised as a batch of medications for the city hospital, like a wolf in sheep's clothing." The mercenary coughs and bloody foam appears on his lips. "Where's the evidence?" I demand. "Something concrete that we can use against him." "In the hospital." The mercenary is barely breathing, as if life is draining from him. Doc Gray hid documents behind a painting in his office. His eyes begin to close like curtains in an empty house. "Blackwood's been looking for them for years. There are lists, dates, names of buyers." His head falls back, his breathing stops. He's dead, taking with him to the grave part of the secret. Jason and I silently look at the body. In the forest, shouts are heard. The rest of the group continues to search, unaware that the pursued have turned into hunters. "We need to go," Jason finally says, "and develop a new plan worthy of our father." "A plan?" I look at my brother. "I already have a plan. we're going to the hospital. I'll get Emily out and you'll find the documents in Dr. Gray's office." "That's suicide." Jason shakes his head. "Blackwood has surely set up guards like at Fort Knox." "That's exactly why he won't expect us to go there." I place my hand on my brother's shoulder. "Are you with me?" Jason smirks crookedly, that familiar smile from childhood which always meant, "You're crazy, but I'll follow you even to hell. With you, to the end, whatever it may be." We dissolve into the night forest, leaving behind the mercenary's body and pursuers who clumsily wander in search of ghosts, unaware that the real danger has slipped away from under their noses, like smoke. Chapter 4. My brother and I have taken shelter in a cave by a small mountain lake, his alternative refuge in case the cabin was discovered. Outside, a storm rages, as if nature itself has become enraged by what people have done on its land. Raindrops drum on the rocks like the fingers of an impatient musician. Thunderclaps echo in the mountains, as if gods are playing bowling. Inside it's dry, but cold as a crypt. We light a small fire, risking detection, but needing warmth and light for planning. Sometimes you have to take risks to survive. So, Jason spreads a map of the town on an improvised table made of a flat rock. 3 days until the shipment arrives. Blackwood will be prepared for everything, like an experienced grandmaster. We must act sooner before his traps are set. I nod, examining the hospital map that Jason drew from memory. I need to get in there, see Emily and find the documents in Gray's office. A double strike at the enemy's heart. Risky, like jumping without a parachute. Jason taps his finger on the mark of the main entrance. The hospital is small. All entrances are surely under surveillance. Blackwood knows you'll try to see your wife, as surely as he knows the sun rises in the east. That's why he's placed guards there like at the Pentagon. I point to the documents we saved from the cabin. But he doesn't know we're aware of the cache with documents, of his Achilles heel. Jason thoughtfully rubs his chin, hidden behind his beard. "We need the feds. Your friend from the DEA, can we contact him before it's too late?" "Not from here. We need a secure channel which we don't have. Besides, as the mercenary said, Blackwood will learn about the call faster than we finish speaking. He has ears and eyes everywhere." "Then we need another signal." Jason points to another map, where Blackwood's warehouses are marked, like cancerous tumors on the body of the town. Something that will attract attention but won't be immediately linked to us, like fireworks in another part of town. "Diversion." I raise an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting, little brother?" "Explosions," Jason simply answers as if talking about the weather. 3 warehouses with drugs here, here, and here. He points to spots on the map as if piercing the hearts of enemies. I know their schedule, know the security system, studied everything over the year like an academic with his subject. This will attract the attention of federal agents like honey attracts bees. I slowly nod. And Blackwood will be forced to pull all forces there, exposing other positions. Exactly. And while he's dealing with fires and figuring out who's behind it, you'll slip into the hospital like a ghost. Jason looks into my eyes, seeking confirmation. "We'll split up. I'll create the diversion, you rescue your wife and find the documents." "Risky plan," I shake my head. "You could be caught or killed, brother." After a year on the run, I've learned to be invisible like a mountain spirit. Jason smirks with bitter confidence. "Besides, it's my duty to our father. I ran then at the hydroelectric plant. Couldn't protect him when he needed me most. I won't run again, even if I have to face the devil himself." In his eyes, I see determination bordering on recklessness, similar to what I saw in the mirror before dangerous missions in Afghanistan. My younger brother, whom I always considered weaker than myself, spent a year in the forests, gathering evidence against our father's killer, while I, the proud ranger, remained in ignorance, believing lies like the last fool. "All right," I finally agree, "but we'll need equipment like for a military operation." Jason nods to the boxes in the corner of the cave, worn and covered with mold. Got everything necessary. I've been preparing for this moment since the day I witnessed Dad's death. The boxes contain homemade explosive devices, hunting rifles, and a pistol, the very one from which I shot the attacker in our house. I didn't even notice when Jason picked it up, like a thief picks up a dropped coin. Where did all this come from? I asked, checking the pistol, which smells of gunpowder and blood. A bit from everywhere, like a bee collects honey, Jason shrugs. Powder from hunting cartridges, detonators made myself. Bought the rifles at different stores long before. All this. We spend the rest of the night developing the details of the plan, like generals before a decisive battle. Jason knows the schedule of the warehouse guards. I study the hospital layout. By dawn, everything is ready, and we feel like warriors before a crusade. If something goes wrong, Jason says goodbye, we'll meet at the old hydroelectric plant, where it all began. Be careful, I embrace my brother, feeling his thin shoulders under the worn jacket like bird bones. Don't take unnecessary risks. Remember, you're needed alive. You too, he smiles crookedly, and for a moment I see in him that boy with whom we built huts in the forest. And say hello to your wife. Tell her that her brother-in-law admires her courage and looks forward to meeting her. The plan begins to unfold at noon the next day. Jason left at dawn, armed with homemade explosive devices and an old hunting rifle, resembling a faithful dog. I remain in the cave, waiting for the signal, the first explosion, which should thunder precisely at 1:00 p.m., like the final chord in a symphony of revenge. Minutes drag painfully slowly, as if climbing up an icy mountain. Exactly at 1 o'clock I hear a distant rumble, a muffled sound like the beat of a giant heart echoed from the mountains. It worked. The first warehouse, the first blow to Blackwood's empire. 20 minutes later, a second explosion sounds, stronger than the first, like thunder from a clear sky. After 30 minutes, a third, like the final chord. Everything is going according to plan, like in a well-tuned mechanism. I turn on the portable radio and catch the local station. Series of explosions in the industrial zone of the city. According to preliminary data, 3 warehouses were blown up. Sheriff Blackwood reports that police are working at the scene, like ants on a disturbed anthill. There are no casualties. According to unconfirmed reports, traces of narcotic substances have been found in the burned buildings. Residents are asked to remain calm and not approach the scene. I turn off the radio and begin preparing for my part of the operation, like a soldier before battle. Jason has successfully diverted attention. Now it's my turn to strike at the heart of the enemy. I reach the town by back routes, avoiding main roads like a ghost. The hospital is located on a hill, offering a view of the city streets like from an observation post. From my position at the edge of the forest, I see police cars and fire trucks rushing to the warehouses, sirens howling like banshees. The town is in turmoil, the perfect time for infiltration, when everyone is looking the other way. The orderly's uniform, which we prepared in advance, is perfect for disguise. I enter through the service entrance, keeping my head down and wearing a medical mask, avoiding surveillance cameras like a vampire avoids sunlight. The hospital corridors are half empty. Most of the staff has gathered in the break room, where news about the explosions is being broadcast on TV like an exciting blockbuster. Emily's room is on the second floor in the east wing. As we anticipated, there's a police officer on duty at the door, a young officer nervously tapping a pen on a clipboard, as if counting the seconds until the end of his shift. I walk past, pretending to head to another room, and notice that the officer is distracted by a message on his phone, like a fisherman by a float. I need to create a diversion, like in a chess game. I go to the nurse's station, where an elderly woman with a kind face is sorting medications. "Excuse me, ma'am," I speak quietly, slightly altering my voice. "Help is needed on the third floor. A patient with an epileptic seizure, and it looks serious. "Oh my goodness," exclaims the nurse, dropping a pack of forms. "I must inform the duty doctor." She hastily leaves the post. Taking advantage of the moment, I tune into the police frequency on the radio, using the name I managed to glimpse on his badge, as if peeking at cards in poker. "Officer Jenkins," I say in an official tone. "Urgent call, code 417. Suspicious package at the main entrance. Immediate verification required. This may be related to the explosions." "But I'm on post," he replies uncertainly, like a schoolboy answering a teacher. "This is the sheriff's order. All available officers must respond. Code 417, highest priority." "Understood. Moving out," he responds with the determination of a person eager to distinguish himself. The policeman casts a final glance at the room door and runs to the stairs, like a sprinter from the starting line. I have a few minutes, no more, before the deception is discovered. I slip into Emily's room, and my heart constricts at the sight of her, pale as moonlight, motionless, connected to life support machines, like a marionette to strings. Monitors steadily beep, counting the beats of her heart like a metronome measuring the bars of life. "Emily," I whisper, taking her cold hand. "I'm here, darling." No reaction, as if I'm talking to a photograph. I lean closer, kiss her on the forehead, cold as marble. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you, but I'll fix everything, I promise. Jason is alive. We've gathered evidence against Blackwood. It will all be over soon, like a bad dream." From behind comes the sound of a door opening, quiet as a whisper. I turn sharply, ready for a fight, like a cornered animal, but on the threshold stands that same elderly nurse. She looks at me without surprise, as if she expected to see me specifically. "I knew it was you, Ryan," she says quietly, her voice full of sympathy. "I'm Agnes Parker. I worked here when your father was sheriff in those glorious times." "You won't call security?" I ask cautiously, preparing to flee. "No," she shakes her head, gray curls swaying like seaweed underwater. "I knew your father. He was a good man, a real sheriff from old movies. And I saw how Blackwood changed after his death, spread his wings like a vulture." She approaches Emily's bed. "Your wife is stable. The coma is not deep. There's a reaction to pain, pupils respond to light. A good sign, like the first snowdrops." "Thank you," I say with feeling. "I need one more help, Dr. Gray's office." "It's now an archive," Agnes nods. "I'll take you there. Just quickly, the officer will soon return when he realizes he's been deceived." She leads me down an empty corridor to the end of the wing, where the office once belonging to Emily's father is located, like a kingdom to a king. "You have 5 minutes," Agnes whispers. "I'll signal if someone comes, like a sentry." The office is piled with old folders and medical journals, like a bookstore after a hurricane. On the wall hangs a dusty portrait, Dr. Gray with his wife and little Emily, all in strict dark suits, as if at their own happiness's funeral. Behind the portrait, I discover a safe built into the wall, hidden from view like a snake in the grass. The code. I recall how once Emily mentioned that her father used her birthday for all passwords, as if it was his talisman. 110585. I enter the combination, holding my breath, like a sapper before defusing a bomb. The lock clicks. The safe opens with a quiet sigh, as if waking from a long sleep. Inside lies a thick folder, sealed with wax like a medieval message. I break the seal and open it. Copies of death certificates with notes, actual cause and official version, differing like day and night. Photographs of Blackwood with people of clearly criminal appearance, like a family album of the criminal world. And most importantly, a list of 30 children transferred for international adoption, indicating their real names and the names of buyers, like a catalog of human merchandise. The evidence is irrefutable, like fingerprints at a crime scene. I fold everything into a bag and leave the office, feeling the weight of truth pressing on my shoulders. Agnes waits in the corridor, nervously fingering her uniform collar. Go quickly. The officer is returning like a wolf to its lair. Thank you, I say. If something happens to me, take care of Emily. Tell her I loved her more than life, more than the universe itself. Agnes nods, accepting the oath. I hurry to the emergency exit, but in the corridor, I encounter a living nightmare, as if a character from the Divine Comedy. Bravo, Ranger, a familiar voice sounds, silky and poisonous at the same time. You almost got out, almost. Blackwood stands at the end of the corridor, with two police officers on either side, like faithful hounds. His lips are curved in a smirk, as if he's enjoying the performance. Explosions at the warehouses. Seriously. I foresaw the diversionary maneuver like a chess player anticipates an opponent's move. Your brother is now either dead or bleeding out somewhere in the forest, like a wounded deer. I freeze, feverishly assessing the situation. 3 armed opponents. Narrow corridor, little room for maneuver. Your father was a stubborn fool, Blackwood continues, taking a step forward like a predator approaching its prey. He could have joined me, become part of something greater, but he chose his high moral position, like a knight without fear or reproach. I see you've inherited his stupidity, like a family trait. Making money off children, Blackwood, I say through clenched teeth. Even for a scoundrel like you, that's too low, like digging a pit in hell. Business is business, he shrugs, as if we're discussing car sales. Some trade in weapons, some in drugs, and I just found a more profitable niche, unfilled like an empty glass. You'll answer for this, I say, and the words sound not as a threat but as a promise. Hardly, Blackwood smirks as if I told a joke. You know, I'm even curious. How did you find your brother? I combed those mountains for years like a bloodhound and you, bang, right to him. Brotherly connection, I reply. You wouldn't understand, like a blind man can't understand colors. Perhaps. He plays with his pistol like a toy, and with your wife we also had a special connection. She was so obedient, did everything I ordered like an obedient doll. I clench my teeth, not giving in to the provocation. This is exactly what he wants, for me to lose control, like a bull at the sight of a red flag. I won't be around, but my cause will continue, I say, bluffing like a player with an empty hand. The feds are already on their way. I sent them the documents like carrier pigeons. For a second, doubt flickers in Blackwood's eyes like a crack in a mask. It's a lie, but he can't know for sure, and that's my advantage. Take him, the sheriff orders the police officers, as if announcing the start of a hunt. From the corner of my eye, I notice a fire alarm on the wall, red as blood. With a sharp movement, I break the glass and press the button, as if launching a rocket. A piercing wail fills the corridors like a banshee's cry. Water pours from the ceiling. The sprinklers have activated, creating a waterfall in an enclosed space. In the ensuing commotion, I lunge forward, knocking down one of the policemen and wrenching the pistol from him, like a wolf seizing prey. Blackwood shoots but misses. The water distorts visibility like a curved mirror. I dive around the corner, hearing his commands. To the stairs, cut off the exits like for a rat. I race down the corridor, my heart pounding in my chest like a hammer. Frightened patients and nurses peek out from the rooms like animals from burrows. Ahead appears an emergency exit, glowing like a lighthouse in the night. Suddenly a shot rings out, echoing off the walls. Sharp pain pierces my thigh like a red-hot spear. I fall, roll over, and see the second policeman aiming at me, his eyes steely and indifferent like a robot's. Overcoming the pain, I rise and push the emergency exit door. Fresh air hits my face like a slap. I stumble, run toward the forest, leaving behind a bloody trail like a wounded animal. I limp toward the old hydroelectric plant. There, where it all began, it must also end, like in an ancient Greek tragedy. The hydroelectric plant is 5 miles from town. Abandoned more than 10 years ago, it gradually crumbles, as if surrendering to time, rusty mechanisms resembling skeletons of prehistoric monsters, a roof collapsed in places, piles of sawdust turned to dust like unfulfilled dreams. The perfect place for the final confrontation, like an arena for gladiatorial combat. Cautiously approaching the building, I notice fresh tracks on the ground like wounds on nature's skin. Someone was here recently, friend or foe, ally or executioner. Jason, I call quietly as if in prayer. My brother emerges from the shadows, holding his side. He too is wounded, as if sharing my pain. Alive, he exhales with effort, as if each word costs him physical pain. Glad to see you in a vertical position. We take shelter inside the hydroelectric plant in its rusty innards. Jason is seriously wounded. A bullet hit his side, but fortunately passed through cleanly, not damaging vital organs, as if death decided to grant a reprieve. What happened? I ask, treating his wound with an antiseptic wipe found in my pockets, the last line of defense against infection. Ambush like in a bad action movie, he winces from pain, teeth clenched. One of the hunters, ex-special forces, tracked me down. A shootout ensued like in the Wild West. I took him down but took a bullet myself. Mexicans call this wet work. Jason smiles weakly, pale as a ghost. Did the diversion work? Yes, I got into the hospital, saw Emily. Found the documents, there with me like ammunition in a magazine. Jason reaches for his backpack, overcoming pain. That's not all. I kept copies of some papers, and a flash drive with Dad's recordings, his legacy. Is this enough to interest the feds? I ask, feeling hope battling fatigue. Should be enough, he nods. If we survive to deliver them, not become nameless bodies in the forest. We treat each other's wounds and begin preparing for defense. The hydroelectric plant is a labyrinth of old mechanisms, stacks of boards and half-collapsed walls, the perfect place for guerrilla tactics, for battle in the shadows. Jason, despite his wound, methodically sets up homemade traps, tripwires attached to unstable stacks of boards, like in Vietnam War films. Remember how we played here as children? He asks, securing wire to a rusty nail. You were always the commander and I was the scout, your eyes and ears. I remember, I smile despite the pain in my leg. You climbed trees better than a squirrel, as if born in the branches. And you shot from a slingshot with such accuracy that Dad predicted a sniper career for you, like a prophet. We work, immersed in memories, as if diving into the transparent lake of childhood. A strange feeling, preparing for a deadly battle in a place where we once carelessly played, not knowing what trials the future would bring. Soon the hydroelectric plant transforms into a minefield of traps, positions for crossfire and escape routes. We know this territory from childhood, every corner, every niche like our own room. What will we do if we survive? Jason unexpectedly asks, and in his voice I hear hope, timid as the first grass. When we survive, I correct him, we'll restore your good name, return to normal life without constant fear. Normal, he smirks, like a man who has forgotten the taste of simple food. After everything that's happened, I'm not sure I'll remember what it's like to be normal, like from a school textbook. You'll learn anew, I squeeze his shoulder, feeling bone under skin. We both will, day by day, brick by brick. Our conversation is interrupted by the sound of approaching vehicles, like artillery rumbling before an attack. Through a dusty window, we see 3 SUVs stopping on the driveway. Armed men get out. I count 8 people, not including Blackwood, standing apart like a commander who doesn't dirty his hands in battle. Frost's, the sheriff's voice amplified by a megaphone, rings out. Come out with your hands up and we'll just shoot you. Resist, and I promise your deaths will be long like a winter night. What a heartfelt reception, mutters Jason. Plan. We split up, I reply. You take the right flank, I'll take the left. We'll use crossfire, cutting them off from each other. Classic military art. Jason nods and silently slips into the shadows, like a wild beast. I take position behind a pile of old boards from where the entrance area is visible, like a sniper point. The first two enter cautiously, with flashlights and pistols at the ready. They move professionally, covering each other like dancers in a deadly dance. Former military, I understand by their tactics, by their precise, economical movements. I let them pass my position, activating the first trap. The wire tenses, and a stack of boards crashes down on one of them with a thunderous noise, like a sentence of fate. The second opens random fire, giving me a chance to determine his position, as if illuminating himself. One shot and he falls as if cut down. Jason didn't miss as always. Outside, Blackwood gives commands, directing the rest of his men like chess pieces. They enter in pairs more cautiously, but still fall into our traps, like moths to a flame. The shootout lasts about an hour, an eternity compressed into minutes. Jason and I act in concert, covering each other and using our knowledge of the terrain like wolves defending their territory. Blackwood has lost 5 men, wounded or killed, but continues advancing, like a commander who doesn't count casualties. Our problem is ammunition. It's running out like water in a desert, while Blackwood seems to have it in abundance, an endless supply. "Ryan," Jason shouts from his cover, "I'm down to my last magazine." "I don't have much either," I respond. "Let's move to Plan B." Plan B is risky, like jumping off a cliff. In the corner of the hydroelectric plant stand barrels of chemicals, old, rusted, but the contents still flammable like a taut nerve. We check this in advance, like cautious chemists. I wait for the moment when one of Blackwood's men is near the barrels, and I shoot. The bullet pierces the metal, liquid gushes onto the floor like black blood. Jason throws a homemade incendiary bomb, a bottle with gasoline and a piece of cloth as a fuse, like a Molotov cocktail. The flash is blinding, like the birth of a star. Fire instantly engulfs the corner of the building, creating a fiery barrier between us and the attackers, like a wall of hellish flames. Smoke fills the room, making it difficult to breathe and see, like the fog of war. "To the emergency exit," I command, and we begin to retreat like an army after a lost battle. Suddenly there's a deafening explosion, like the wrath of a god. Part of the ceiling collapses, cutting off our path of retreat. I see Blackwood holding a grenade launcher, like a medieval knight with a spear. "No one leaves," he roars through fire and smoke. "We'll all die here, but I'll take you with me." He fires again, this time aiming at the support column of the hydroelectric plant, the last bastion of stability. The rumble is deafening, like a bell right by your ear. The support column gives way, and part of the structure begins to collapse. Concrete, metal, and wooden beams fall, raising clouds of dust. I barely manage to dodge a beam falling from above. "Ryan," through smoke and rumble I hear Jason's voice. "They're trying to bury us." Through the curtain of dust, I see Blackwood holding a grenade launcher aimed in our direction. His men have spread out, slowly tightening the ring. "Ryan, here." Jason's voice comes from behind a pile of rusty mechanisms. "I have a plan. Remember the secret passage we found as children?" I frantically try to remember. 30 years ago, we played explorers here and found a secret passage in the building's foundation, leading to the river. Dad forbade us from going down there then. "Behind the generator," I shout, trying to overpower the noise of the collapse. "Yes, make your way there, I'll distract them." "No," I shout, "we'll meet at the exit." But Jason no longer responds. I see his shadow slip between supports to the opposite edge of the building. Then I hear his voice. "Hey, Blackwood, is this who you're looking for?" Several shots, the sound of breaking glass. I use the moment and stooping run to the ancient generator. Once it was the pride of the station, a massive device human height. Now, a rusted hulk behind which hides a narrow passage. With difficulty, I squeeze through the opening, ignoring the pain in my leg. The tunnel is narrow, moldy, the air stale. I crawl like in childhood, only then it was an adventure. Now, a matter of life and death. From behind come shots and shouts. Somewhere there, my brother is diverting Blackwood and his men. We arrange to meet at the eastern exit, an old drainage pipe leading to the river. My heart pounds like mad. One thought pulses in my head: hurry, hurry, hurry. Finally, the tunnel widens. Ahead glimmers dim light. I emerge outside and listen. Silence. Only the sound of water and somewhere in the distance, muffled shots. I wait 1 minute, 2, 5, Jason isn't here. Clutching the pistol in my hand, I return to the tunnel. I can't lose my brother a second time. But I barely manage to go a few yards when I hear a rustle. Someone is crawling toward me. I raise the pistol, aiming into the darkness. "Ryan, it's me," Jason croaks. "Don't shoot." He tumbles out of the passage, covered in blood and dust. The wound in his side is bleeding again, with a fresh scratch on his forehead added to it. "Are you all right?" I whisper, helping him out. "Are they coming after you?" "No," he coughs, pressing his hand to his side. "Distracted by the collapse. Managed to reach the tunnel. We have a minute, no more." Supporting my brother, I descend to the river. The water is icy fast, but there's no choice. "Can you swim?" I ask, knowing the answer. Jason weakly nods. I take the folder with documents from my shirt, wrap it in a plastic bag from the first aid kit, and securely fasten it under my clothes. Then I help my brother into the water. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. We plunge into the cold stream, which immediately carries us away. The last thing I see before the river hides us from the pursuer's eyes: silhouettes of armed men on the shore and muzzle flashes. The rumble suddenly gives way to silence. The steady beep of machines, the smell of antiseptic, a white ceiling. I blink, trying to focus my gaze. A hospital room, not the one where Emily lay. An IV needle is stuck in my arm. My body feels alien, as if filled with lead. "Welcome back." I turn my head and see Marcus Decker from the DEA. He sits in a chair by the window, straight and fit as always. "How long?" My voice is hoarse like sandpaper. "3 days," he replies. "You nearly drowned, Jay." "Jason," I interrupt. "Where's my brother?" Marcus's face tenses. "He lost a lot of blood. The doctors are doing everything possible." "Emily?" "In stable condition. The bullet hit an artery but didn't damage vital organs. Doctors say she'll recover." Relief washes over me in a wave. "And the documents?" I croak. "We received everything," Marcus nods. "You were right about everything. Blackwood created an entire network: drug trafficking, child trafficking, evidence tampering, contract killings. Your father and brother, they were heroes, tried to stop this." "And Blackwood himself?" Marcus's face hardens. "Dead, refused to surrender, opened fire on agents. His men too. 3 were taken alive, they're already giving testimony." I close my eyes. I don't feel joy or relief, just fatigue, emptiness, and pain in my wounded leg, and a strange feeling that part of me remained there in the cold waters of the river. "And Jason," I repeat, "I need to see him." Marcus looks at me for a long time, then nods. "I'll arrange it with the doctors." Half an hour later, a nurse brings a wheelchair. I wince from pain when they transfer me from the bed. Decker silently wheels me through the hospital corridors. We stop at the doors of the intensive care unit. Through the glass partition, I see my brother, entangled in tubes and wires. His chest barely visibly rises in time with the artificial ventilation machine. By the bed sits a nurse, the same one who helped me at the hospital, Agnes. She holds Jason's hand and says something quietly to him. "The doctors say he can hear," Marcus says. "He's strong. Pulled you out of the river with a bullet in his side and a stopped heart. Patrol officers found you on the shore 2 miles from the hydroelectric plant." My eyes fill with tears. For the first time in a long time, I allow myself to cry for my father, for my mother, for my brother whom I considered a traitor but who turned out to be a hero. What about Emily? I ask through tears. Third floor, replies Marcus. She regained consciousness, asked about you. We go up in the elevator. Emily lies pale, gaunt, but so beautiful. Machines steadily beep, measuring the beats of her heart. I take her hand in mine. It's warm. Hi, her voice is barely audible. Hi, I squeeze her fingers. I think I owe you a story with a happy ending. She smiles weakly. Emily, forgive me. I should have protected you. SHHH, she whispers. Everything's fine. I knew about Dad. Blackwood was blackmailing me, forced me to tell him about you. I tried to protect you. I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. I should have believed you. She weakly nods and closes her eyes again. Her breathing becomes even. She's asleep. 3 long weeks. On crutches, I move between 2 rooms, Emily's and Jason's. My wife comes to herself, looking better each day. Doctors say they'll discharge her in a week. With Jason, it's more complicated. He still hasn't regained consciousness. Doctors talk about brain swelling, about possible consequences of oxygen deprivation. But I believe he'll pull through. Now I believe in him. In the 4th week, as Emily and I sit by his bed, my brother's hand slightly squeezes mine. His eyelids tremble, then slowly rise. His gaze is cloudy, but he recognizes me. Rye, he whispers through dry lips. I'm here, brother, it's over. Blackwood is dead. The truth has prevailed. He knew, whispers Jason. Dad knew they would come for him, asked me, to protect you and Mom. And you protected, I squeeze his hand. You protected us all this time, and I thought. I know, he says barely audibly. I would have thought the same. 6 months later. I stand in the backyard of my father's house. 5 months of renovation, and now it's almost like new. Or rather, not like new at all, Emily, Jason, and I have restored it to how it was in childhood. Jay, be careful. I shout to my brother, who is balancing on the veranda roof, hammering in a new board. He turns and salutes me with the hammer. You shouldn't be at heights at all, I grumble. Jason grins. He's still pale, his right arm doesn't obey well, but doctors say mobility will return with time. The main thing, he's alive and exonerated. The federal investigation ended a month ago. Blackwood turned out to be the top of a criminal empire stretching across 3 states. Human trafficking, drugs, contract killings. Dad started this investigation and involved Jason, at that time still a state police detective. When Blackwood exposed them, Dad was killed and Jason barely escaped. All evidence pointed to him. For a year, he hid in the mountains, gathering evidence to clear his name and his father's. Now it's all over. Dad's name is cleared. He was posthumously awarded a medal for service to the state. Dr. Gray, Emily's father, was also rehabilitated. The investigation showed he was one of Blackwood's first victims, who forced him to falsify medical reports by threatening his family. Emily comes out onto the porch with a tray of lemonade. She's almost fully recovered, only sometimes holds her side when she thinks I'm not looking. I don't like that he's up there, she says, putting the tray on the table. I told him the same thing. Emily looks at me, and I see in her eyes the same thing I feel myself, gratitude and peace. We went through hell, but we got out. When is Marcus coming? She asks. Promised to be here for dinner. He'll bring all the papers. And news from the prosecutor's office. Yes, but I think it's just a formality. The case is closed. I embrace Emily, pull her close. She smells of lavender and home. A real home which we lost many years ago and finally regained. Hey, lovebirds, Jason shouts from the roof. Since you're standing there doing nothing, pass me some more nails. Emily and I laugh, and I feel something dark finally releasing my heart. There's still a lot of work ahead. We need to restore not just the house, but justice, faith in people, trust in each other. But now, as the sun descends toward sunset, painting the sky above the forest in crimson hues, I know one thing: we'll manage. Together. The end.